82%. To talk about Opera GX's suspicious nature, we would first need to talk about Opera. Opera holds around 2.82% of the browser market share, which equates to around 56.4 million active users. Compared to that, its competition Brave has around 15.5 million daily active users. That is nearly 3 times more than the people who are they competing with. However, the way they got there doesn't make the company as trustworthy as they may appear. Opera has been accused of integrating itself into multiple pop-ups that would normally contain itself into malware. In the mid-2010s and onwards, the site has appeared on multiple sites such as AdFly and other suspicious sites, claiming to either be a free media player update, browser update, Java update, or even a Flash update. This, along with other natural growth, made it so that in around 2015, they started to have 5.86% in market share, and this today would be around 117,200,000 monthly active users. This does not help the fact that Opera as well as Opera GX are trying to hide that their company is based in China. The problem with China holding data of other foreigners is that the Chinese government has a history of exerting control over the flow of information and engaging in surveillance activities. Allowing China to hold online data of American users could potentially give the Chinese government access personal information, as well as other sensitive data, enabling surveillance and potentially compromising common principles. Although Opera Software states to be a Norwegian company, its parent company, Kunlun Tech, is located in China. This information was relatively hard to find, especially since the only company tied to this parent company is within the Opera group, but is not what holds the brand itself, that being Opera Limited compared to Opera Software. According to Opera's privacy policy, the other companies of the Opera group that may have access to personal data act as data processors for Opera Norway. In short, what that means is that data is able to be transferred and processed between every part of the Opera group so that then it can be processed, including one area in which data is held in China, where it may be a little easier for the company to sell user data. And with this all in mind, it is key to note that Opera can be considered spyware by multiple means. For example, Opera makes on first launch 83 unsolicited requests. I especially find this humorous since one of the requests that they make is to Lowe's.com. As well as that, they do also monitor things such as your geolocation, which is not really ideal for a Chinese company to hold. They do also have a list of partners such as Amazon, eBay, and even Booking.com. This is all based on speculation, but what makes sense to me is the fact that since these sites are partnered with Opera, they would have the ability to track personalized data of its users. And now back to how Opera tracks your geolocation, I ran an experiment to see if Opera GX falls under the same practices. I'm going to tell you how to do this so that then you can possibly do this for yourself. I installed Fiddler Classic from their official site so that then I can track all of the requests coming from Opera GX. Once downloaded, I ran through the Opera GX installer and made sure that the general location configuration was turned off. This was so that I can make sure it wasn't supposed to track where I was. Once I ran through the installer, I launched Fiddler and watched the requests roll in. One of the requests was from web known as goip.network-n.com. Other browsers would use a specific domain that is pretty much meant to track your location for business insider purposes, making your data pretty much anonymized. However, this does not seem to be the case with Opera GX, and what they do is they practically have information such as the exact city you're from, zip code, and your literal latitude and longitude coordinates. Even on Google Chrome, they never run any GeoIP instances. And since Opera GX runs on Chromium, which is an open version of Google Chrome, they should not be running any similar practices. However, that does not seem to be the case. You also know how Opera GX has a built-in VPN. Well, there may be some problems with your privacy and security when it comes to using this VPN. A VPN works by routing a device's internet connection through a private service rather than the user's regular internet service provider. This, in theory, would change the user's IP and make their browsing experience more secure. However, how most VPNs run is they reroute your location to a random place and also encrypt the data to ensure the user's confidentiality when surfing the internet. However, Opera GX reroutes your location directly to the Norwegian headquarters, which there they would have access to all your personal information. It is not known whether they encrypt your data or not. That is all up to you, but this VPN can give them access to personal information such as browser history, a direct insight on your IP address, and even more. So now that you see Opera GX's shady practices from logging your geolocation unsolicited ways to rerouting all of your data to Opera's headquarters, it should be clear that it may be a little difficult to trust
Is it possible to random generate a Steam key? There are a lot of
For example, Opera makes on first launch 80. The question still lies as to what you probably should use instead of Opera GX. I personally use Brave as it is relatively simple to get most, if not all of the features that lie within Opera GX. I did also run a test, and Brave utilizes less RAM without messing with speed compared to Opera GX does with its RAM limiter. The question still lies as to what you probably should use instead of Opera GX. I personally use Brave as it is relatively simple to get most, if not all of the features that lie within Opera.
Could you imagine a house where all people do is play video games? Well, they're making one in the country Andorra, and it's called the Opera GX Village. Now, according to Dan Johnson, there's going to be a gaming setup in every room, and you're going to be able to enter for a chance to win a stay at this house. This house looks awesome. Well, the community actually thinks otherwise. This comment saying, looks like an interesting opening to a horror movie. This feels like a late April Fool's joke, yet it looks reassuring enough. Happy April Fools. After the failures of Cryptoland and Redditland, this joke is so on the spot. You guys have a good sense of humor. Keep it up. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you imagine a house where all people do is play video games? Well, they're making one in the country Andorra, and it's called the Opera GX Village. Now, according to Dan Johnson, there's going to be a gaming setup in every room, and you're going to be able to enter for a chance to win a stay at this house. This house looks awesome. Well, the community actually thinks otherwise. This comment saying, looks like an interesting opening to a horror movie. This feels like a late April Fool's joke, yet it looks reassuring enough. Happy April Fools. After the failure